Hello, good morning, everyone. Ali, I have to warn you, this is the first audience I'm facing outside of a Zoom screen in 2 years. I'm here to talk about sustainable fisheries in the context of 30 by 30. So, in response to the global biodiversity crisis, the UN Convention on Biodiversity has really called for the protection of land and sea, 30% of it by 2030. And we know, many of us here in the room today, national governments, international organizations, support this call because we know that this is important and we're all getting behind a very ambitious goal. But how do we make sure that as we implement 30 by 30, we are actually getting the greatest impact for people and nature? So we're here making commitments for the ocean. We know that a healthy ocean is actually going to be critical for food, for livelihoods, and for the ability of communities to adapt to climate change. And we know also that many of these communities are the least responsible for climate change in the first place. And so, as we think about how to execute on 30 by 30, I think it's very important for us to make sure that we're also focusing our attention on the area of the ocean that has the greatest impact on people. And this is the territorial seas. Territorial seas are 0 to 12 nautical miles, thin band of ocean, just makes up 6% of the ocean, but actually home to 70% of its biodiversity. At the same time, this is where we see 100% of mangroves, of seagrass, kelp forests, and 83% of coral reefs. So much of the beauty and the wonder that we saw earlier are really found in territorial waters. At the same time, territorial waters are really where the intersection of biodiversity and high human need is. Right? There are 60 million people that work in small-scale fisheries. Many of these are found in coastal waters. Another 53 million depend on small-scale fisheries for subsistence. And then this actually makes up 40% of the global catch, and almost all of this catch is for food. So that's really how important this area is. But the thing is, territorial waters are actually underprotected. They're overlooked and underprotected. Only 11% of protected marine areas are found in tropical territorial waters. Most of the others are outside, far from the biodiversity-rich areas that we're talking about. It's really because it's easier to set up a marine protected area far from densely populated areas, right? It's socially and politically easier and more feasible. But that we can't allow that disparity to continue if we really want to make an impact in the lives of people. If we want 30 by 30 to make an impact on not just nature, but people, we need to address this issue. So we think that there's ways that we can do this. There's a lot of success has already happened. Groups like Blue Ventures and NGO and us at RARE, these are the pillars of our approach. The first one is really about pairing protection with effective management. So in territorial waters, it's very hard to actually declare all no-take zones, right? So it can't be all off limits. But if you have protected areas that are off limits to fishing, and then they're surrounded by areas where it's managed and fishing is done sustainably, you actually can make sure that it's the communities and the indigenous community and the indigenous fishers that are around that area that benefit from the conservation. This video shows a community in Mozambique where they established their first community managed access and reserve area and set up the buoys. And as you can see from their action, we're pretty sure they're going to be able to make this work. And then another piece is really, bigger is not always better. Sometimes smaller networks of smaller reserves put together can actually yield better results, and they're actually more acceptable for the community. If you do it properly with the right data, you can actually get fish recovery for your populations. And then lastly, we have to elevate the roles of communities and local governments in this story. We have to devolve the authority to these communities because they're scattered all over. There are hundreds and thousands of them. So we need to be able to give them the authority, the tools, and the data so that they can actually do good decision making. So finally, thank you very much. This is, as we push towards 30 by 30, we need to make a concerted effort to really focus some of the funding that we have towards these very important waters, the territorial waters. Thank you.
Thank you.